So it's pretty safe to say that I love music. I'm not one of those individuals who only listens to one genre of music. I'm pretty open to all of it. So I feel like the 2010s and the 2020s were a pretty strong year for music. Some of my favorite artists really dropped some mean bangers in these past 2 decades, and some newcomers on the block really made their stay. But one of the things I noticed over these past 20 years of listening to music is that some of the best albums were pretty short in length, while some of the worst albums were, well, pretty long in length. And that's not the general rule of thumb. Just because you have a long album doesn't make it a bad album, but it does seem that there is a pretty common theme, and I wanted to discuss that in this video. So today I wanted to discuss the topic of quality versus quantity. I specifically want to discuss 3 examples in this video, those being My Dear Melancholy by The Weeknd, Kid Cudi by Kid Cudi, and Yay by Kanye West. If you like the sound of that, make sure you hit the like on this video. I make multiple videos a week about, well, all sorts of things really. Some of those things include video essays, TV show reviews, YouTube reactions, and just whatever I really feel like posting. If that sounds like something you could get behind, make sure you check out the channel and subscribe if you're ever so kind. And with that out of the way, let's jump right into it. So for the first example, I want to discuss My Dear Melancholy by The Weeknd because I feel like this was one of the most prime examples of quality over quantity. Coming off of Starboy, Abel Tesfaye knew exactly what he wanted to say and made this album, My Dear Melancholy, just to express those feelings. After the success of Abel Tesfaye's Starboy, The Weeknd knew exactly what he wanted to say and knew he needed to make another album just to say those things. And that came in the form of My Dear Melancholy, which is really a reflection of his 2 past relationships, those being with Selena Gomez and Bella Hadid. Now, I'm no The Weeknd aficionado. I don't know exactly when he broke up with either of these people. These are just the sources I've read, but I'm telling you it reflects in the lyrics. Either it was both of them or it was one of them. I'm guessing maybe Selena first. I don't really know. The point I'm making is My Dear Melancholy is all about his reflection on what could have been with those relationships. And it really shows. It shows the inner workings of a man who knew exactly what he wanted to make and did so perfectly. My Dear Melancholy has 6 tracks on his track list, and those include Call Out My Name, Try Me, Wasted Times, I Was Never There, Hurt You, and Privilege. And out of the 6 of these songs, I can't think about a bad one. And the reason I think this is because it comes back to Abel knowing exactly what he wanted to write. Now, I'm no music producer, I'm no artist myself, other than the fact that I play drums and a little bit of guitar, but I can tell you for certainty that it must not be easy to write an album unless you are dead set on something. If you know exactly what you want to say and how you're going to say it, you have a really focused sense of what the album is going to be. You see this in other works of art such as Damn by Kendrick Lamar. You see this again by The Weeknd with After Hours, which, oh gosh, we will address in another video. And you see this even with things like TV shows, where the shorter shows that ended after, let's say, like 5 seasons, they ran perfectly because the writers knew exactly what they wanted to write. Now, you put that in direct contrast with something like Donda from Kanye West's most recent album, and you just see that there was a lack of direction. And mind you, that may be an effect of Kanye's mental state, maybe it's not, I don't know, but the point I'm trying to make is that album feels a lot more misdirected than what you get with something where someone knows exactly what they want to say. And again, I want to make this point very clear. This is not the case with all albums. I just wanted to address the fact that this does occur commonly with shorter works of art because they're really more concise. And speaking of Kanye West, the next album that I want to use to reference is Yay by Kanye West. Now, I guess you could argue the fact that Yay is in conjunction with Kid Cudi Ghosts. I mean, they really worked together, Kid Cudi and Kanye West, on both of those albums, so I guess you could consider them like all one project, but Yay stands on its own, and so does Kid Cudi Ghost, so we're gonna get to that after this, but Yay is another example of quality versus quantity. Yay has 7 tracks on its track list, and they include I Thought About Killing You, Yikes, All Mine, Wouldn't Leave, No Mistakes, Ghost Town, and Violent Crimes. And just like the first one, they are all pretty straight to the point. The only odd one you get on this is I Thought About Killing You, but it perfectly sets up the tone of the album, so I don't even want to count that as a downer on the album. And what I also like about this is you could tell Kanye wanted to talk about things he was experiencing in his personal life. It reflects on every song on the track, reflections of his daughter, of his wife, the way he acts in the media. It's all there. there, and he said it in such a short, brief, but right to the point way. I don't know if you're starting to see a common theme or not, but both of these albums have about 6 or 7 songs in it. They're really on the shorter side, and yet neither of them are really diminished in quality. There's not like one song that's like, what was that? They're all really good. Not to mention the features on this album, which really include Kid Cudi, are very well thought out and perfectly segue into the last album I want to talk about, Kid See Ghosts. And just like Ye, Kid See Ghosts also has a track list of 7 songs, and those are Feel the Love, Fire, Fourth Dimension, Free, Ghost Town Part 2, Reborn, Kid See Ghosts, and Cudi Montage. And there's a common theme here. They're all bangers. Out of the 3 of these albums that I want to talk about, this one I don't know the whole backstory of as much as I know the other ones, but I could tell you each of the songs on it are fantastic, and you could tell the focus was heavily there. So all of these albums came out in 2018. And the craziest thing about that is they all came out pretty close to one another. My Dear Melancholy came out on March 30th, Ye came out on June 1st, and Kid See Ghosts came out on June 8th. So they all came out in a pretty similar time frame to one another, which is crazy. And what's even crazier is that you haven't seen something like this from those artists again. This was kind of like a one and done thing, maybe. And ever since then, I've been itching for the same sort of albums from these artists and many more. I'm gonna be honest with you, My Dear Melancholy is what got me into the Weeknd more than I ever was, and now I love The Weeknd. Pretty much same with Kanye West. I mean, I loved My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and I loved some of his other work as well, but Ye really made him feel special to me. Now, Kid Cudi's the only one on this list that didn't like really put him on the map for me, because I loved Kid Cudi when I was growing up, but this album reignited my love for him, and ever since then I've been going back to him constantly. And each of these albums really feel magical to me. And no, this isn't a Something Magical video. If you want to check out my Something Magical series, you could click either here or here, and I'll link all of them in there. But they truly do make me feel a certain way that none of the other albums of any of these artists make me feel. Now, The Weeknd has come out with some bangers that weren't as short as My Dear Melancholy since then, but this album was pretty special to me. Same with Ye. Kanye's came out with a couple good albums since then, some were not so good, but overall, Kanye West made this album feel really special to me as well because of its story. Then Kid Cudi, again, just like what I was saying earlier with him, this was like, okay. I mean, after that run, there wasn't much from him. I mean, I guess you have the Man on the Moon 3, but that wasn't like a standout, fantastic album. It was good, it wasn't great. And the reason I wanted to bring this up so much is I look at these albums in contrast with something like Donda. Now, obviously, that would be really one track if I only looked at Donda to compare this to, but it is the best example of quantity versus quality. Donda has a pretty long runtime, and honestly, there's only a couple standout songs on there. For some of the super big Kanye West fans, I know, I'm sorry, I'm guilty as charged, but I'm just gonna say it, that album was not that strong. And I personally feel that's because it was a bit overwhelming. There was so much on there and nothing was like super special on it. Like really, there aren't really any Donda hits, and that's saying something about the album. Yeah, there's Hurricane, but that's like kinda it. I also didn't really like the features on that album, but that's also beside the point. We're not going to go too deep into Donda. Another prime example of something like this is the White Album by the Beatles. Now, yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite albums by the Beatles, and if you want to see me tier ranking the Beatles, you could check that out here. But the overall perception for the White Album was there was a ton of weird stuff on it, and I get that. Even though I don't personally agree with it, it is another example of how when you have a super long runtime, you're going to get a bit of a more diluted album. Now, I think there is like somewhat of a sweet spot when it comes to albums. Anything over 20 songs is way too much. I really think somewhere between like 12 and 16 songs is perfect. And the thing that I keep coming back to is I can't think about many albums that really have quality in every single track. Yeah, some of the world's best albums have that, but the majority of them, there's at least a couple songs in there that are like, eh. But these 3 albums were the prime example of quality over quantity. And hey, you're more than welcome to disagree with me. I mean, these aren't my favorite albums by these artists. Let me just run down the list of that really quickly. The Weeknd, it's obviously After Hours for me, which I do have a video coming all about that, but we'll get into that later. Then for Kanye West, it's easily My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And for Kid Cudi, we have Man on the Moon, the original, because it just brings me to such a special place in my life. And so to wrap up, these albums aren't the exceptions, but they are a good precedent for I think how most artists should be writing their albums. But hey, if there's an album that is pretty long that I do like, then I'll commend it and I'll probably talk about it in a video one day, but I haven't found one that's over 20 songs on the album that I actually liked. So I guess to that degree, it's kind of a balancing act. Some albums are a little bit longer that are better than others, some are a little bit shorter that are better, but the point I wanted to make is the shorter albums tend to be better. So how'd I do? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. I think we could start a pretty interesting dialogue about album runtimes in general and track lists overall, and I'd love to hear about it. So yeah, that just about wraps it up, and if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe if you want to stay up to date with all things I post. And yeah, until the next one, see you later. Peace out.